Hello readers, I'm Amy, and today we're going to talk about reading during COVID, during a pandemic, during isolation and quarantine. I am seeing so many videos about comfort reads, and I wanted to put in my 2 cents, not on comfort reads, but on reading during COVID in general, because it has really affected me as both a booktuber and a reader, and I'm sure it has affected many of you and your reading habits as well. So, starting off, I am going to recommend audiobooks. Just audiobooks in general, not really any specific audiobooks. You know what you like. Whenever I was living alone in my own apartment several years ago, I constantly had Netflix playing. Nonstop all the time. When I was home, I had Netflix on. I wasn't necessarily paying attention to it, but I loved the sound because the sound kept me company, and a lot of times I would feel really lonely because I was living alone, and it just gave me comfort to have that sound in the room. So if you're struggling to get into audiobooks, now might be a great time. If you're feeling lonely, if you're like me and you like a little bit of sound around you, if you're also like me and your anxiety gives you a lot of racing thoughts and you can't get your mind to just stop, sometimes it really helps to listen to something because it takes your mind off of yourself and your situation and puts you into someone else's story. So audiobooks, this is a great time for them. Keep yourself company, keep your mind calm, and get out of your own head and into a very good book. Next up, eBooks. eBooks are probably the least popular way to read among the big three, which are, of course, audiobooks, eBooks, and physical. I have struggled with ebooks just as much as any other person. I read them more in college because it was cheaper to get my textbooks that way, and lately I've gotten back into them. I see all of these people doing these book hauls and being like, I bought this and this and this physical book, and I've done that myself. I've gotten a couple of physical books delivered to my house, but that also kind of makes me feel bad because I feel like I'm putting other people's lives at risk by having them drop off a non-essential item. Because as much as we here love books, books are not an essential item. So, on that note, here come ebooks, because you can still support authors and publishers, but you don't have to put other people's lives at risk to get those books. You can also get ebooks from your library, which supports your library and their programs and systems. So now's a great time to start reading ebooks. Also, as annoying as it is to look at the screen, there are those whatchamacallums, paperwhites or something? My husband has one where it doesn't have the backlighting on the screen, but mainly I do read books off of my Kindle, which brings me to another point, cuddle time! So for someone who gets as lonely as I do, I am a night owl. I tend to stay up later and get up later in the morning, but I don't really want to do a bunch of reading in the middle of the night in my living room when my husband's asleep, because I want to be around my husband and I want to cuddle whenever things get dark and creepy at night. Also, cat cuddles are of course always the best, never mind his terrible haircut. Anyways, if I want to cuddle up with my husband, but I don't want to turn on the light and disturb his sleeping, ebooks, that's the time to bring them out. You can lower the lighting on your phone, you can do a black background with white font, whatever you need to do to make it a little easier on your eyes, while also getting that essential cuddle time, which cuddle time is also great whenever you're in a pandemic or quarantine like we are, and you just need some company. Also, it can be easier on your cat's eyes rather than turning on the light whenever they're sleeping in a dark room and then they glare at you with their angry little eyes. Then, last up, we have stories, just stories in general. I need to put him down so I can grab my books. Here we have short stories, essay collection, more short stories, also novellas. This is a great time for them. So for me and Dimitri, what do you want? For me and my reading, I have struggled to read more than 5 to 10 pages a day. If I'm really lucky, I could read like 30 pages a day. It's just not something I've been able to really concentrate on, which is really rough since I'm also doing school right now. I need to be able to concentrate on what I'm reading, on what I'm working on, and books have been a great way, short books have been a great way to get me back into that and to practice trying to concentrate a little more amongst all of whatever this is. So I have never been a huge short story person. Short story collections just tend to be really uneven. You get some really great ones, you get some really terrible ones. But I've been reading a lot of short stories and essays and novellas because you can start and finish a story within an hour. You can get the whole thing and then you can take a break and move on to something else. And that's helping me practice concentrating again. So here I have 100 Vicious Little Vampire Stories. I'm about 100 pages into this. I think that's like 18 stories or so. And I'm really, really enjoying this. I can pick up a story, say right before bed, read it in probably 10 to 15 minutes, and then put it down. And I've read an entire story from beginning to end, and that little bit makes me feel accomplished. But also, I don't have to spend an entire day trying to read 100 pages without getting very far into a book. Also, working on sex work writings by women in the sex industry. This is an essay collection from sex workers. And similarly to 100 Vicious Little Vampires, you have some essays that are a page and some that are 10 pages. So you can kind of pick and choose the length that you're feeling, or you can just go one at a time in order, and you can feel accomplished because you've gotten the whole section done. And just that little bit of accomplishment really helps. I also recently finished a set of Daphne du Maurier short stories. This is the first set of short stories that I ever read the whole way through and loved every single one of them. And I also ended up picking The Birds and Other Stories, which is one of those books, and really liked that as well. So I find her a great author if you're looking for some good short stories. And something else to note amongst this collection of books here is these two specifically, and also the other Daphne du Maurier that I have back there. Daphne du Maurier is very gothic in her setting, kind of creepy vibes. You're never entirely sure what you're going to get from her. And 100 Vicious Little Vampires, some of them have been some pretty creepy stories. Some of them have been funny, but a lot of them creep me out a little bit. And as for the comfort read videos that I mentioned at the beginning of this video, you're probably not going to see me ever doing comfort read recommendations. When I hear the phrase comfort read, I'm immediately bored. That's just me and my reading taste. I don't reach for comfort reads. The only book that I can think of that I've read in the last couple of years that I would call a comfort read would be Little Women. It's just not a style of book that I reach for. I don't go to books for comfort. I go to books for stories and activism and thrills and adventure and excitement. And right now, what I've been searching for is a little bit of horror in my life. I am one of those readers who has started to pick up little horror stories and horror books because I want to be creeped out. I want to be scared. I want to be put into another world that seems a lot worse than the one that we're living in right now. So I recommend picking up some horrific short stories if you need to get out of your head a little bit and feel like your situation isn't so bad. So that is what I have for quarantine and isolation and COVID recommendations. Not so much specific book recommendations as different ways to read if you're struggling to concentrate, if you're struggling to get out of your head, or if comfort reads just aren't your thing. So I hope this video has helped some of you. Please like, subscribe, be my friend on social media, and I will see all of you in my next video. Bye, friends.